People live as if the universe is a lottery machine. They act like life is a spinning wheel where fate randomly decides who rises and who collapses. They blame God, destiny, the universe, the economy, their past, their parents, their trauma, the algorithm, the country, the market, but they never once suspect that the real variable has always been them. Luck is a lie that human beings invented to avoid responsibility for how passive they are. Luck is a comfortable shelter for the weak, the afraid, the hesitant, the overthinkers, the ones who get stuck inside their own mind, creating fantasies of the future while doing nothing powerful in the present. The world is not rewarding the most prepared. The world is not rewarding the most talented. The world is not rewarding the most deserving. The world is rewarding the ones who pull the trigger first. Not because impulsiveness is the answer, but because waiting is death. Waiting kills potential more than failure does. Waiting kills momentum more than rejection does. Waiting destroys talent more than ignorance does. Luck was never luck. Luck was a side effect of courage in motion. Luck was the shadow created by force, initiative, movement, and disruption. That is why Machiavelli wasn't talking about women when he spoke of fortune being feminine. He was talking about life. He was talking about the psychological nature of reality itself. He was revealing an uncomfortable truth. Fortune responds to the bold, not the obedient, not the nice, not the neutral, not the ones who play safe. The passive drown in fairness debates. The bold bend the universe. Most people have an emotional addiction to hesitation. They wait for the event, the sign, the perfect moment, the guarantee, the proof, the ideal conditions, the magical alignment, the right month, the right year, the right feeling, the right validation, the right motivation. And this is the paradox. People want the results of courage before they have the courage. They want victory at the price of comfort. They want transformation without paying the internal cost. They want a life of impact while refusing to risk being criticized, judged, or misunderstood. They want recognition without friction. They want power without pressure. They want destiny without danger. And this is why they believe in luck. Luck is not real probability. Luck is emotional anesthesia. Luck is the psychological crutch that allows a man to avoid confronting his own paralysis. Destiny is not something you discover. Destiny is something you impose. The world is shaped by those who decide that uncertainty is not a threat, but a weapon. The bold do not fear chaos. They manipulate chaos into advantage. The passive avoid storms. The audacious sail inside them. Greatness is not a miracle. Greatness is aggression with intelligent direction. Every empire was born out of unreasonable audacity. Every revolution started with one person who refused to wait for permission. Every era of massive change was ignited by someone who decided that standing still was more dangerous than acting wildly. Nothing extraordinary has ever been built by someone who wanted luck. Extraordinary things are built by those who create inevitability. That is the hidden meaning behind Machiavelli. Fortune loves those who force reality to respond. Luck is not granted. Luck is taken. Luck is the consequence of crossing lines. Most people never even approach because they are too busy negotiating with fear. Luck is not a blessing from destiny. It is the receipt from the violence you inflicted upon your own limits. Courage is the currency of transformation. The ones who act become the ones who seem lucky. The ones who wait become the ones who call others privileged. Not because life is unfair, but because they deliberately refuse to fight for their own outcome. Luck was never luck. It was courage. People like to believe that failure begins when things go wrong. But failure actually begins much sooner. Failure begins the moment a person chooses safety over movement. Most people don't lose because they tried and failed. They lose because they never walked into the arena at all. The modern world created a romantic illusion that overthinking is intelligence. But most overthinking is simply fear disguised as logic. It is fear wearing the mask of rationality, so the ego doesn't have to feel exposed. Society praises the ones who avoid risk. It calls it responsibility, maturity, caution. But in reality, this is how mediocrity protects itself. It normalizes hesitation so that nobody feels guilty for not evolving. And that is exactly why the bold dominate. Because while the majority is busy building explanations for not acting, the bold are out there moving. Human beings don't suffer from lack of talent. They suffer because deep down, they know they are betraying the person they could be. That inner betrayal is heavy. So the mind invents a softer escape. People blame destiny. They blame circumstance. They blame timing. They call others lucky, so they don't have to face their own passivity. Luck becomes emotional anesthesia. If someone else succeeded because of luck, then no one needs to confront the painful truth. They succeeded because they did what you didn't have the courage to do. The real root of stagnation is the fear of responsibility. Because once you accept responsibility, excuses die. And without excuses, the mind loses its protection layer. When a person replaces the question, "Will this work?" with the question, "How do I make this work?" their entire destiny shifts direction. That is the exact moment when the concept of luck evaporates and inevitability begins. Passive people live inside the realm of what if. They calculate, rehearse, simulate, anticipate, but they never cross the line. The bold live inside what's next. They act. They adjust. They evolve through contact with reality. Waiting is self-destruction, disguised as caution. Action is the force that opens paths no one else even knew existed. Movement reshapes probability. Movement bends the environment around you. There is no courage without fear. Courage is walking with fear, without asking fear for permission. And when fear meets action, the world outside interprets that fusion as luck. Luck does not visit those who wait. Luck only arrives to those who move. Movement is the engine of providence. Movement is what forces reality to respond. And that is why luck was never luck. It was always courage in motion. Potential is the most overrated currency in the world. Everyone has potential. The graveyards are full of potential. Potential becomes valuable only when it transforms into force, into movement, into action that creates impact in the real world. The universe does not respond to who you could be. It responds to who you decide to become through action. This is why two people can have the same talent, the same intelligence, the same dreams, and one becomes extraordinary while the other disappears into irrelevance. It is not because of luck. It is because one of them moved. Life is not a neutral scoreboard. Life is biased toward aggression. Life bends toward initiative. Life rewards the one who strikes first, not the one who waits until everything feels comfortable. Comfort is the silent killer of empires, dreams, and identities. Every time you choose comfort over confrontation, comfort over risk, comfort over expansion, you are trading your future for a small temporary feeling of safety. And the price is always too high. Greatness is expensive, but the cost is paid in courage, not in miracles. The bold step forward when nothing guarantees success. The bold move when the miracles outcome is uncertain. The bold speak before feeling ready. The bold act before feeling prepared. Preparation matters, but excess preparation becomes a graveyard of unrealized possibilities. People think strategy is about waiting for the perfect moment. Strategy is about creating a moment that did not previously exist. This is where Machiavelli's message becomes painfully accurate. Fortune favors the audacious because audacity shapes the environment itself. When you take action boldly, you force probability to shift in your direction. You force chaos to reorganize. around your intent. You force reality to respond to your presence. People call this luck because they cannot understand how movement turns into momentum. Momentum is invisible at the beginning dot. It looks like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, every small action is negotiating with the world. And eventually, the world begins to bend dot. It starts slow. Then suddenly, that is how every breakthrough happens. It never feels linear dot. It feels impossible until it becomes undeniable dot. And those watching from the outside will always say, he was lucky. She got lucky. They were lucky. No, they were not lucky dot. They were simply willing to do what others were too afraid to even attempt. Luck is just courage with more time dot. Courage compounds. Effort compounds. Consistency compounds dot. Movement compounds dot. And eventually, the world calls this luck because it cannot see the thousands of invisible acts of bravery that built the foundation beneath the public result. Luck is the external label that ignorant observers attach to other people's private battles. Luck was never luck dot. It was just courage. Seen from the outside, before a person conquers the world outside, they must conquer the world inside. And this is the battlefield most people never truly enter. The real war is not against competitors. It is against your own hesitation. It is against your own narrative of limitation. It is against every automatic thought telling you to wait, to pause, to reconsider, to postpone, to protect yourself from embarrassment. Most people are not fighting life. They are negotiating with their fear. They are constantly trying to convince themselves that the right moment will appear naturally, that clarity will arrive without friction, that confidence will magically grow without exposure. But confidence is not something you wait to feel. Confidence is something you generate through repeated contact with discomfort. No one becomes confident by thinking. Confidence is a physiological memory that you earn through action. The first risk is always terrifying. The first decision always feels unstable. The first movement always feels premature. But the more you walk into uncertainty, the more uncertainty becomes familiar. Fear never disappears. You simply become too strong to be controlled by it. This is the internal transformation that others cannot see. This is the silent evolution that later appears publicly as luck. People see the victory, but never the war that produced it. Before you defeat external chaos, you must stop obeying the inner voice that wants you to remain small. This is what Machiavelli implicitly understood. Fortune does not bless the strongest. Fortune blesses the one who refuses to be ruled by fear. The ones who create history are not the ones who feel fearless. They are the ones who choose to walk inside fear rather than run from it. When a person breaks the agreement with hesitation, they unlock a version of themselves that no longer waits for permission. And that version begins to rewrite everything. From that moment forward, life stops happening to you and begins happening because of you. This is the pivot point where destiny is forged. Not through chance, not through miracles, but through a psychological rebellion against the mind's instinct for comfort. This rebellion is courage, and that courage, when repeated, becomes a gravitational force. It attracts resources, people, information, timing, perception, new routes, and new possibilities. This gravitational pull is what the world mistakenly calls luck. Luck is the echo of courage. Luck is the byproduct of self-conquest. Luck is the universe responding to someone who finally decided to stop waiting. And when you cross that internal threshold, you become a different kind of human, the kind that reality cannot ignore. People waste years of their lives waiting for the right moment. But the right moment is never something you find. It is something you construct. Life does not synchronize itself to your self-doubt. The universe doesn't pause for you to feel ready. Time doesn't stop so you can catch your breath. The world keeps moving even when you don't. And this is one of humanity's greatest traps. People believe timing is external. They think there is some cosmic alignment where conditions will suddenly become ideal, where fear dissolves, where clarity arrives, where all uncertainty fades. But timing is not a gift. Timing is a consequence. Clarity is not born before the leap. It is born because of the leap. Courage bends time. Courage reorganizes. Circumstances. Courage turns imperfect moments into catalytic ones. You do not wait for doors to open. You knock until the hinges break. The people who become unstoppable are not the people who know when to act. They are the people who refuse to wait. Waiting is just fear with a sophisticated vocabulary. And while you wait, someone else executes. While you debate possibilities, someone else creates proof. While you try to predict outcomes, someone else is shaping them. Soon, the person who moved looks blessed, and the one who waited looks cursed. One was not lucky, the other was not unlucky. Their difference was simply the price they were willing to pay in courage. Because luck is not an external blessing, it is internal timing multiplied by action. The mind of the bold operates like this. If the moment is not ready, I will make it ready. If the path is not clear, I will walk anyway, and clarity will appear. If there is risk, I will still advance, because risk is the toll of transformation. Luck follows those who refuse to worship perfection before beginning. The perfect conditions you dream about only exist after you move, because movement is what shapes the future, not imagination. Luck is not a moment you wait to catch. Luck is a momentum you build by refusing to stay still. Luck was never an event. Luck was always a reaction. A reaction to bold movement. Every meaningful life demands a sacrifice. Not a sacrifice of comfort alone, but a sacrifice of identity. To become someone new, you must let a part of you die. This is the part most people refuse to face. They want a new result while keeping the same personality. They want a different future while protecting their old habits. They want expansion without surrender. They want ascension without metamorphosis. Greatness is not a destination. It is a crucifixion of who you used to be. The version of you that is afraid, hesitant, fragile in ego, terrified of judgment. That version cannot enter the life you want. That version was designed for survival, not domination. Transformation is uncomfortable because it pulls you away from the identity that once kept you safe. And safety has become the modern addiction. People would rather remain miserable as long as they remain familiar, because the familiar feels controllable. But courage is the betrayal of the familiar. Courage is the conscious decision to burn the shelter in exchange for the horizon. This is why people call great individuals lucky. From the outside, it looks effortless. It looks like they simply stepped into fortune. It looks like destiny smiled upon them. But they do not see the internal depths. They do not see the nights of doubt. They do not see the breaking of old identities. They do not see the cost paid in silence. They only see the aftermath, not the sacrifice. If you ever wonder why the world rewards so few, it is because so few are willing to die internally to be reborn. Externally. Luck is not a gift. It is a scar. It is a symbol carved by every moment when a person said, "Even if I am afraid, I still choose to move." Those repeated decisions are what create inevitability. And inevitability is what society mislabels as luck. In truth, luck is the corpse of your former self that you buried along the path of mastery. Luck is the harvest grown from the seeds of all the moments you refused to retreat. Anyone can desire a better life. Very few are willing to sacrifice the person they currently are to earn it. That is why the world is not divided between lucky. It is divided between those who dare and those who hide. People imagine courage as something mystical, as if some are born with it, and some are not. As if courage is reserved for heroes. Legends, kings, warriors, prodigies, chosen ones. But courage is not a gift. That courage is not inherited. That courage is not a genetic. Privilege. Courage is a trained response to fear. It is a pattern you reinforce through repetition. At the beginning, courage feels unnatural. It feels like you are forcing yourself against every instinct inside your body. It feels like swimming against a psychological current. But the more you act, even while afraid, the more the brain learns that fear is not a stop sign. Fear is simply a signal that you are crossing into territory where growth exists. This is why children are naturally bold. They have not yet been conditioned to worship safety. The world trains fear into them as they grow. The courageous are simply the ones who undo that. Conditioning. Courage becomes a skill when you begin treating fear as information, not as authority. This is the point where action becomes easier than avoidance. This is the moment where movement becomes instinct. This is where luck starts being attracted instead of chased, because luck gravitates toward the ones who behave like destiny is negotiable. When you consistently choose action over fear, life begins to shape itself around your motion. New relationships open, new possibilities emerge. New opportunities appear that were invisible before you moved. None of this is random. None of this is magic. It is simply the world reorganizing itself around someone who has proven they are willing to act. Courage is mechanical. Courage is trainable. Courage is a discipline. And every time you choose courage, the universe tilts a little more in your favor. Not because of luck, but because of alignment between intention and movement. You become a generator of probability. You become a creator of timing. You become the source, not the receiver. This is why the life of a bold person looks lucky to the passive ones. The passive assume outcomes are gifted from above. The bold know outcomes are engineered from within. Luck is not found, luck is built. There is a strange pattern in the universe that most people never notice. Life does not bend for the strongest. Life bends for the most persistent. Strength impresses the world. Persistence forces the world to respond. You do not need to be faster than everyone. You do not need to be smarter than everyone. You do not need to be naturally extraordinary. You only need to be the one who refuses to stop. The game of life is not won by intensity, but by continuation. The passive treat effort like a sprint, a burst followed by retreat. The courageous treat effort like oxygen, something they return to every day, regardless of emotion, motivation, approval, or certainty. Most people can act once. Most people can attempt once. Most people can try while they feel excited. But the bold do not base their movement on emotion. Their movement is a decision. They advance even when doubt whispers. They move even when fear clenches the stomach. They continue even when the world remains silent. Repetition is where courage becomes identity. Luck appears not because of one bold act, but because of thousands of quiet, invisible acts that compound over time. Society sees the explosion, not the pressure that built it. Society sees the breakthrough moment, not the years of silent perseverance that carved the path toward it. People call the explosion luck because they never witnessed the grind that preceded it. But you know, deep inside, you always know, the universe rewards those who refuse to collapse when everything seems stagnant. Every day that you continue, you tilt reality a little further in your favor. Every day that you persist, you shift probability like a tectonic plate beneath the world. Every day that you don't quit, the impossible becomes slightly more possible. Persistence is not stubbornness. Persistence is delayed inevitability. Luck is simply inevitability arriving at scale. When you refuse to break, when you refuse to retreat, when you refuse to surrender, the world eventually has no other choice but to respond. Fortune does not belong to the fearless. Fortune belongs to the relentless. Luck was never luck. It was the reward reserved for those who kept walking long after others stopped. There is a moment in every person's life where they face a silent crossroads. Moment where they realize that blaming external forces will never change internal reality. A moment where they understand that waiting for fairness is a strategy for permanent disappointment. This moment is the doorway, because the second a person accepts full responsibility, the world stops being something happening to them and becomes something happening from them. Responsibility is terrifying for most people because it removes every excuse. No more strategy to hide behind. Circumstance. No more comfort that comes from blaming luck or fate. No more protection from accountability. But responsibility is also liberating. Because if you caused nothing, then you can change nothing. But if you caused everything, then you can change anything. This is where power begins. Machiavelli understood this at the core. Power belongs to those who take authorship over their outcomes. People think fortune is distributed randomly, but fortune gravitates toward the ones who behave like they are in control of their own narrative. The ones who act like creators, not spectators. When someone decides, I am responsible for what happens next, that is the exact instant destiny becomes flexible, because destiny is not rigid. Destiny is a system of probabilities that reacts to direction. And direction only exists when someone takes responsibility for their own trajectory. This is why the powerless cling to luck. Luck protects them from the burden of realizing they wasted time. Luck protects them from guilt. Luck protects them from truth. But the moment a person abandons luck, they inherit power. Responsibility is not a weight. It is a weapon. It is the authority to rewrite tomorrow instead of reliving yesterday. It is the demolition of helplessness. It is the end of victim psychology. It is the beginning of personal sovereignty. From this point onward, life becomes a battlefield, not a lottery. And in that battlefield, courage is the currency. The more responsibility you carry, the more influence you hold. The more influence you hold, the more leverage you have. The more leverage you build, the more luck you appear to generate. But it isn't luck at all. It is simply power translated into results. Luck is the illusion that hides the machinery of responsibility. Fortune is not something you receive. It is something you manufacture. And the person who understands this never waits again. There comes a point where courage stops being only about movement and becomes about confrontation. Not confrontation against people, but confrontation against reality as it is. Every major transformation in history began with someone who looked at the current state of the world and said, no, this is not enough. I reject this reality. The people who bend destiny are not the ones who merely adapt to life. They are the ones who dare to impose their will upon it. To the passive mind, this looks delusional. To the cowardly mind, this looks dangerous. To the average mind, this looks unrealistic. But to the courageous mind, this is the only path worth walking. To demand a better future is to offend the present. To take control of your narrative is to challenge the inertia of the world. To step outside the boundaries of permission is to become a disruptor of fate. The bold do not wait for reality to validate them. They act first and force validation to follow. This is what people misinterpret about risk takers. They think the courageous are reckless. They think the courageous are irresponsible. They think the courageous are driven by blind impulse. But the truth is much simpler. The courageous simply refuse to let fear decide the size of their life. Fear is a terrible architect. It builds tiny futures. It builds narrow lives. It builds prisons that look like comfort. When you obey fear, you become a citizen of that prison. When you confront fear, you become a leader of your own expansion. Those who call others lucky never see the battles fought against the invisible. They never see the moments where a person stood against the pain of uncertainty and acted anyway. They never see how many times reality was told no. until reality had no choice but to bow. Luck is not a blessing. Luck is the residue of defiance. Luck belongs to those who are willing to push so violently against probability that probability eventually broke. The world always looks rigid until someone bold enough arrives to bend it. And when the world finally bends, the crowd calls them lucky because the truth is too heavy for them to accept. They had the same fear. They just didn't have the same courage. There is a moment in this journey where courage stops being something you force and becomes something you are. At first, every step feels unnatural. You act despite fear. You move despite doubt. You push despite not knowing if you are ready. But repetition changes structure. Repetition rewires belief. Repetition transforms nervousness into neutrality, and eventually into instinct. Courage becomes your baseline. This is the moment where other people start calling you lucky, because they cannot comprehend how you move without hesitation. They think you have special access to timing, to intuition, to opportunity. But what you actually have, internal momentum. You are no longer negotiating with yourself every time you need to move. You are no longer waiting for emotions to support your decision. You are no longer dependent on motivation, validation, applause, or safety. Movement becomes identity. Action becomes personality. Initiative becomes your natural reflex. The identity shift is the real miracle, because once a person becomes someone who acts, their life becomes someone who advances. You don't chase opportunity anymore. Opportunity begins to orbit you. People start finding you. Information starts flowing toward you. Connections start appearing that were invisible before. It begins looking like the world is working for you instead of against you. But this is not magic. This is selection. Reality selects for the ones who select themselves. And from the outside, observers cannot decode this mechanism. They only see outcomes. They only see the surface. They see acceleration. They cannot explain. And the easiest explanation for acceleration they don't understand is this one word: luck. But the sharpest truth is this: your identity is your real destiny. Once you become a person who moves, your life becomes a story that moves with you. Luck is simply the external world interpreting your identity. Shift, because when courage becomes who you are, destiny becomes something you sculpt. Luck appears only after identity evolves, not before. Luck is the label society uses to protect itself from the weight of accountability. It is easier to believe that life is random than to accept that we are the architects of our own becoming. But once you understand the machinery behind destiny, you can never unsee it again. Everything you want, everything you dream, everything you imagine yourself becoming is not waiting on chance. It is waiting on courage. The bold are not chosen by fate. They choose themselves first. And fate adjusts. This is the secret that Machiavelli tried to encode inside a metaphor. He was not speaking about women. He was not speaking about romance. He was speaking about the psychological nature of fortune itself. Fortune responds to force. Fortune responds to initiative. Fortune responds to those who dare. This world is not neutral. This world is reactive. It reacts to the ones who move. It rewards the ones who impose direction. It follows the ones who refuse to wait for permission. So from this point forward, when you see someone succeeding, do not ask if they were lucky. Ask how much courage they were willing to deploy while everyone else was still thinking. Because history is not written by the talented. It is written by the courageous, and you are not separated from the life you want by destiny, but by hesitation. So the question now becomes painfully simple. How much longer will you wait? How much longer will you trade your future for the comfort of inaction? How much longer will you choose safety over becoming? The next chapter of your life is not determined by luck. It is determined by how many times you are willing to walk forward despite fear. Luck was never luck. It was always courage. And the day you finally accept this is the day the world stops being a lottery and starts becoming a weapon in your hands.